Back in high school, group projects were the bane of everyone's existence. Ask anyone, nobody looks back on them fondly. But in every group that got a passing grade, there was that one kid flexing their bulging, meaty back muscles to carry everyone through. The leader, the visionary, the one willing to get things done. The one who knew that a group project meant they'd be single-handedly improving the pitiful grades of their group members. And I'm convinced that Billy Basso, the sole developer of Animal Well, was that kid. This guy made everything in this game, and I do mean everything. Sound effects, music, environment art, character design, even the puzzles were all brought to you by the mind of Billy. Hell, he even created his own game engine for Animal Well by programming in C++, which is coincidentally the extra special grade his classmates got for simply being part of his group. The engine specifically works better with pixel art games like this one. Billy built every minute aspect of this game with love and painstaking attention to detail, which is why after a few years of development, it caught the eye of Big Mode, a company started by the famous YouTuber Dunkey. This is the first game published by the company, and having Dunkey's seal of approval definitely lent it some extra publicity. You start off deep within the well as a cute little brown blob that channels Kirby and Kuribo energy. The game begins without any instructions or tutorial and continues to not hold your hand for basically the entire time you play. The ominous, murky tones of the well are met with familiar, comforting gameplay elements of simple platforming and basic exploration. But this balance is struck merely to ease the player into the well. After just a few minutes of playing, the entirety of the map is at your fingertips. It's up to you to discover the secrets that expand explorable areas. The game itself is a Metroidvania. For those that don't know what this is, think open world game meets 2D platformer. And if you've been following the channel for a while, you know that I only truly stepped into this genre last year. But I've had a lot of fun experiencing what these games have to offer, and it's been crazy to see just how different two games in this genre can be. A vast majority of Metroidvanias incorporate some element of physical fighting in the gameplay, but Animal Well takes a completely different route. None of the four main story bosses are fought with combat, and instead are subdued with the likes of clever redirection or completing a chaotic puzzle. In fact, this remains true for all hostile NPCs you encounter, as you're challenged to distract dogs with a frisbee, trap hummingbirds that would otherwise pop your platforms, and light up some sneaky shadow figures. It's this level of outside-the-box gameplay that makes Animal Well stand out from the pack. And although you can't physically attack any animal, some critters are on guard and will gladly deduct some of your health if you're not careful. But for the most part, a vast majority of the animals are not aggressive by nature if left unprovoked. In fact, many seem to be scared of you and will scamper away as soon as they spot you. Some are blissfully unaware of your presence entirely, and yet others look at you like a delicious little furry snack. The game walks a fine line between wholesome and horror, but what's a fuzzy little munchkin to do if it can't fight back? Probably use a bunch of toys as equipment. By far one of the most refreshing experiences in this game is the arsenal of gear at your disposal. Instead of a sword, you have a bubble wand. Instead of a shovel, you get a spinning top. Instead of a grapple hook, you've got a yo-yo. What makes all of this even more wholesome to me is how readily this lost little creature accepts these misfit toys as the key to escaping the well. If I was the adventurer lost in this animal-riddled dungeon, I'd be hyperventilating in full-blown panic attack mode at the thought of my survival depending on a slinky. What's funny is this winds up being one of the most used items to solve puzzles in the entire game. It can't be stressed enough how much creativity oozes out of the well. It's bewildering that one person came up with these Zelda-level quality challenges. The design of the game is obviously appealing to older generations of gamers, with pixel art and optional CRTV lines built directly into the game's visuals. I think Metroidvanias tend to lean into this concept harder than other genres because the root of these games, and the namesake itself, were born out of the late 80s. When your bouncy ball hits certain blocks, it gains a zero-gravity-like effect that turns your environment into a makeshift game of Pong. The save points are a telephone, which Billy mentioned in an AMA is a nod to Earthbound. There are loads of secrets hidden throughout the well. And speaking of secrets, it's Easter morning and you're on break from elementary school. You wake up to the smell of zero responsibility and you already know it's about to go down. A giant rabbit has hidden plastic eggs filled with candy and prizes throughout your yard, and it's up to you to find them. You never would have looked behind that tree on any other day, but all of a sudden today, it's an interesting place to explore. Gamers have been chasing this high every single time they crack open a new game. Google your favorite game followed by the words Easter egg, and I guarantee you're not the first one to look it up. And what's more, you'll likely discover something you didn't know about the game, hidden for all these years. Whether it's just a mere nod to a previous game in the series, or a cameo from an entirely different game altogether, there's something peculiarly satisfying about discovering these hidden secrets, like the developer left it just for you. And as for Animal Well, man, this game is overflowing with Easter eggs. In fact, most of them are literally eggs, 64 of them to be exact. Billy describes Animal Well to be composed of 3 layers. What's crazy is everything I've described before the eggs is literally just the first layer. The first time you see credits, you will have defeated several bosses and played what feels like a full indie game. But the true ending comes several hours after this when you manage to find every hidden egg. And unlike your parents' lazy job of placing eggs on Easter morning, simply finding these eggs is a challenge in and of itself and frequently only half of the equation. You can expect to complete dozens of higher difficulty challenges before you see what that next egg is called. What's more is you'll be expected to flesh out your collection of tools in order to find every egg, which brings new possibilities you likely never would have expected. But then again, if there's one thing this game has taught me, there is always more than meets the eye. It's one thing to reward someone for opening their mind, but it's another level entirely to require it in the way that Animal Well does. How is it that something that looks so simple at first glance can be so much more? At the risk of sounding cliche and corny, the answer is love. Very few people get to be part of something that they were born to do. Some might call this a passion project, but I think it's better described as purpose. Lewis and I recently discussed our apprehension to start Lobby Up, and I'm sure Billy felt nervous many times over the years that he spent in development. Despite that, he opened his mind to the possibilities. He looked that terrifying manticore in the face and said, "You're actually not that scary. In fact, I think you might be helpful." This game reflects this paradigm shift and will likely give you more than you bargained for in one way or another. It may only be 33 megabytes to download this game to your PC, but the game will demand so much more storage in your brain. After all, the name of Billy's development company is Shared Memory, which is likely a play on words describing both the computer programming meaning as well as the collective experience bringing together a community of passionate gamers. That's what we're all about here at Lobby Up. Open your mind. Go play Animal